Good afternoon on this Wednesday afternoon, November 11th. I'm Brian Houston. It is time to talk SEC football once again. We had a monumental weekend this past weekend, the game of the century for this particular year on Saturday night up at Tuscaloosa. Also, a stunning ball game in Oxford, Mississippi, and bringing on our friend Ces Guerra, the author of Gumbo for the Tiger Soul, from his home in Houston to recap all of Week 10 and look ahead to Week 11. How you doing, Seth?
I'm doing well. Just done licking my wounds and ready for another big game this weekend.
Well, it was, I tweeted it out last week. I've never been so sorry to be right in my life, but I had a feeling that it was going to happen that way, and it did. I never will. And I'm talking about Alabama beating LSU 30-16. The one thing
Right.
that did shock me was I never imagined that Alabama would shut down Leonard Fournette to the degree that they shut him down, holding him to less than 40 yards. I saw that. I never saw that coming.
Right. And to me, what that speaks to is the lack of confidence in Brandon Harris. There was no confidence in the passing game. There was a reluctance to really open it up, and it forced LSU to play into the teeth of Alabama's strength. And Alabama knew it. They said Fournette is not going to beat us, would not allow Fournette to beat us, to beat them, and then Brandon Harris couldn't, and um, and then that rolls on over to the other point that I've made on this show many times, and that is the lack of quarterback development. And I've got just a great parallel discussion for you on that particular topic. So we can delve into that in just a little bit.
Man, so you're already coming out hammering on the quarterback situation and the coaching, and I, I honestly felt like Brandon Harris was the only reason that LSU was in the ball game in the first half, because he hit the big touchdown pass, and when they were doing nothing offensively, he had him at 10-10, and then of course we do the stupid thing of kicking the kickoff out of bounds, and we give Alabama great field position right there at the end of the first half, and they're able to get a field goal. But I thought, honestly, I thought Brandon Harris was the only reason LSU was even in the ball game in the first half.
Hey, I am not cracking on Brandon Harris. Don't get me wrong. I think that he can, and the passing game that he offered did get us out of the hole, got us out from under the shadow of the end zone on that one play to Traven Durrell on the sideline, and then the bomb for the touchdown to Traven Durrell. Those were two great plays. Again, both very long passes, deep balls, and they've shown Brandon Harris has shown an ability to do that. What Brandon Harris has not been able to show is the short and the mid-range passes, and he missed those. He missed the pass to Leonard Fournette. He missed the pass to number 84, the tight end. His name slips my mind, but he missed that pass too. So, um, with a defense like what Alabama is going to throw at you, you've got to be able to execute all those balls. But again, I go back to the long range quarterback development issue that is plaguing LSU, and I've got a great discussion for you in just a
Okay.
bit after we talk a little bit more about this game.
Okay, and I'll come back to that. I will say that I do believe that the interception that he threw, his first interception of the year, was on the very first offensive play of the second half, and it set up an Alabama touchdown. And I believe the ball game was over at that point. At that point, Alabama had
Yeah.
scored 10 straight points. They were up 20-10. 20-10 doesn't seem insurmountable, but the way the front seven on both sides, the way the front lines were dominating on both sides for Alabama, I really did feel like LSU was out of the ball game, and dominated that.
Yep.
So, all right, make your point about your thoughts about the quarterback.
Okay, this is no mystery to you. I've discussed it over and over the past 2 years and 2 seasons that we've done this show, is the lack of quarterback development. And as you look at it, we go from a Jordan Jefferson and Jarrett Lee kind of going back and forth to a Zach Mettenberger, and he had a couple of years, and just there wasn't a whole lot of continuity. And then we go to Anthony Jennings, and I think you would wholeheartedly agree with me that Anthony Jennings was not the answer. And then we go with a true sophomore in Brandon Harris. And so what is he, 19, 20 years old at the max? And he's going up against, competing against Alabama's quarterback, who is a fourth year junior in Jake Coker. And so let's just take a look at the Alabama quarterback history over the past 8 or 9 years. And so when Nick Saban took over, there was Parker Wilson, I believe. And after a couple of years, Greg McElroy took over and led them to a national championship. When McElroy graduated, Alabama had waiting in the wings a third-year sophomore in A.J. McCarron. 3 years in the program before he sees the field. He was a little testy at first part of that season, and then you see what happened with A.J. McCarron. 2 national championships. A.J. McCarron leaves, and then you get a fifth-year senior in Blake Sims. Blake Sims leaves, and you have a fourth-year junior in Jake Coker. And until LSU can get the quarterback development, the depth at the quarterback situation with quarterbacks in the system that are capable, experienced, and can throw every pass that is necessary, short, mid-range, and long, it's going to be that relying on the power running game. So it'll beat most teams out there, but if there's a team committed to stopping the run and has the athletes to match up with LSU's offense, and you don't have a quarterback that can keep the chains moving, we're going to run into this periodically, now and forever.
All right, now we can begin the debate. There of the guys that you mentioned, okay, there's not a one of those guys that was what you would call a five-star quarterback in the bunch. And that's not disparaging of Alabama's quarterbacks at all, okay? But Alabama asked their quarterbacks to do much less than the majority of quarterbacks are asked to do in the SEC. Greg McElroy, I'm very familiar with because he was here in Texas at South Lake Carroll. He was not a five-star recruit by any stretch. A.J. McCarron was not a five-star recruit by any stretch. John Parker Wilson, he inherited from Shula, and you could tell Nick was never really bought into John Parker. John Parker kind of drove him crazy at times. McCarron, I think of all the quarterbacks that Alabama had, McCarron ended up being the best because he played as a sophomore, remember. He played as a sophomore, and he started for 3 years.
As a third-year sophomore.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, and I'm not disagreeing with you about the depth of quarterback. As far as quarterback development, I mean, you make a lot of great points, and I'm not going to argue with you about the fact that the Alabama quarterbacks have done a good job. I don't think anybody would say that Jake Coker is all that in a bag of chips. Jake Coker doesn't make a lot of mistakes. What I do like about Jake Coker is he is a very tough guy. He strikes me as being a real leader because when I've seen him take off and run and put his shoulder down and go for the extra yard on a first down, those kinds of things win your team over. And that's just kind of the nature. That's the identity of the Alabama football team to begin with. Blake Sims, honestly, I think they just got lucky with Blake Sims because I don't think Bama even was counting on him playing quarterback. And it just turned out that he stepped up and surprised everyone. The whole world expected Coker to start last year, and they caught lightning in a bottle with Sims. So I do believe you have to be lucky. I will say this: in in agreeing with what you're saying. Um, I never understood how Anthony Jennings even is on this campus. I think that was a gross misevaluation of talent. I just don't see it. I understand he was a highly rated quarterback coming out of the Georgia area, but I never saw anything that reflected to me that this guy was a big time college quarterback. Never
Right.
understood that one.
Right.
Brandon Harris, on the other hand, when you talk about quarterback development, Brandon Harris was lost. He was so lost last year, and I believe that the reason for that has nothing to do with the LSU staff. I believe that Brandon Harris was like most quarterbacks in today's high school football who run a zone read spread offense. They don't even take a snap from center. Everything is get the ball out of your hands as quickly as possible and then make plays with athleticism. There's no real scheme to it. So when he moved to LSU, he was playing, it was almost like taking a French student and dropping them in the middle of Spain and expecting them to be able to survive. So
Right.
his freshman
Right.
year was lost. No, normally,
Right.
what you would like to have been able to do is redshirt him and not even let him see the field in that first year.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
And
you
he
have
he'd
to
be
admit
a
when you talk
redshirt
about
freshman this year.
yes, that's right. So give him a year where he doesn't even touch the field and he has a chance to learn the offense. But you have to admit he is 1,000 times better this year than he was last year. So when you talk about quarterback development,
Totally agree.
he is
Totally agree.
a totally different player, totally different
Totally.
player than he was
Totally.
last year. And
Yes.
that being said, same thing with Zach Mettenberger. When he came in, he was a junior college transfer. The first year he really struggled. The second year he was fantastic.
Yes.
Unfortunately, that was the year that LSU picked to be terrible defensively, and he was losing a lot of 42 to 41 ball games. So
Right.
there is evidence there that Cam Cameron does get some development out of these guys from one year to the next. Now the depth issue is another issue, because and that may change next year when the new guy comes in from Florida. You know, who is the
Right.
5 star, and he's 6'9"
Philippe
and
Frank.
weighs
Phil,
800 pounds, and
yep. Yep.
who
Philippe
knows what he's
Franks.
going to be
Frank
like.
Philippe.
Right.
Yep.
And so you're going to have a veteran quarterback in Brandon Harris next year who will have 3 years in the system. I fully expect his development will continue.
Yes.
You will have a guy that you may be able to, if the kid will agree to do it, be a redshirt freshman. That's part of the problem too. Is these LSU guys, they want to come in and play immediately. The Alabama guys aren't exactly being recruited by everybody, and so it's not so hard to get them. I mean, Brandon Harris, I think really, if the hat had said we're going to redshirt you for the year, I really think Brandon Harris would have gone somewhere else. That's just my opinion. The
That's true.
Alabama guys, the guys that Saban brings in, seem to be more willing to sit for the year because they're not going to go someplace else and get the opportunity to play in that kind of program. So I mean,
Right.
it's a philosophy thing. I do agree
Yeah.
with you that they're awfully thin. If Harris goes down and you got to go back to Jennings, I think the season's lost because I just don't think I don't think Anthony Jennings is a Division I top flight SEC quarterback. Although there aren't many top flight SEC quarterbacks.
Yep. Yeah. And I'm hearing everything that you're saying. Totally understand. You know,
Mm-hmm.
these guys that we've named off of both Alabama and LSU, really the only person that made a significant impact in the NFL is Mettenberger. So of all those quarterbacks, as far as individual talent, I would say Mettenberger going to the next level has been the best. And so my only point, and maybe I was just a little bit unclear about what I mean about quarterback development. Maybe not so much on the individual side, the individual developmental skills. I would say that Cam Cameron has done a remarkable job in improving Brandon Harris, as you pointed out. But when I talk about quarterback development, I talk about what I mean is getting that stable of quarterbacks, just like you have in running backs. And I know it's a different position, but you've got to have that series of quarterback and quarterback depth to take over once the number one guy goes graduates or gets drafted. So that's my point when I'm saying development is developing that position as a whole, developing the depth, and developing the lineage of the future. So that's really where my um, problem is with the current situation of quarterbacks, and not um, the execution or performance on the field, because that has improved.
I am just wanting to let you know, if you, in case you can hear me, give me a thumbs up. Okay, because at this moment I am not able to hear you at all. We're having rain in our area, um, but I'm just telling you now, the weather always seems to affect these precasts. So I'll just try to we'll try to get through this as best we can to wrap up the LSU Alabama talk, and then we may come back on the phone and visit about the other things. I'm going to try to just shut up and let you talk to me about the Leonard Fournette versus Derrick Henry situation. With Henry having such a big ball game, he rushed for over 200 yards on a night when, again, the fronts just dominated LSU. And Fournette had such a shaky night with the 31 yards. He never had a chance. He never had a hole to run through. So first thing I want to ask you is tell me what you think this does to Fournette's Heisman Trophy chances. And when you get done with that, if you'll give me a thumbs up, I'll ask you the follow-up question, but I am not going to be able to hear your answer, okay?
Okay. All right. So as far as the Leonard Fournette, Derrick Henry battle, Derrick Henry and Alabama clearly won that game, that matchup on Saturday night. Derrick Henry looked like the big, powerful, elusive back that he has shown over the course of his career at Alabama. And those numbers really, or that performance really catapulted him in the Heisman race. I don't think all is lost for Leonard Fournette. He's got three big games ahead of him with Arkansas, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M. So he still has some opportunities and some big games to put up some big numbers. But and I think everybody realizes that Brandon Harris is going to have to soften up the defenses with the short and mid-range passes, along with the big ball, the long ball, to help open up that running game for Leonard Fournette. Because these teams coming ahead of us, with the exception of A&M, Arkansas and Ole Miss, can load up the box and stop a running game for the most part. All's not lost. Leonard's still in the conversation, and we'll hope to see that he gets some good, powerful games in the upcoming weeks. And it's it's over to you.
Okay. And again, Seth, I don't have any idea what you said, but if you want to chat with me and give me an idea of what you said, basically, are his hopes dead or not? I will give you my thoughts. I do think that his chances of winning the Heisman were greatly damaged, unfortunately, by nothing that he did. I just believe that there were no holes there, and I don't think that he had a prayer. He just never had anywhere to run. And even when he tried to make things happen, Alabama's defense was so good the other night that even when he tried to make plays by reversing field or something, they just had every lane stuffed. They played such gap discipline all night long, and not only that, but they just manhandled the LSU offensive line. That's my opinion. I just don't think LSU's offensive line was prepared for what they got from the Alabama front. That being said, there's still some great opportunities here. Fournette faces an Arkansas defense that gave up over 50 points last week. So certainly there's a chance that Fournette could have a huge night against Arkansas. He also faces a Texas A&M team that is terrible against the run. So again, he's got an opportunity to put up some massive numbers. But he's going to have some of those 290, 300-yard rushing games, and he's going to have to get somebody that's going to be able to step up and slow down Alabama. Maybe that's against Mississippi State this weekend, where somebody can come in and slow down Derrick Henry and make him look ordinary. And then on top of that, because of the way Fournette played the other night, and I say the way he played, but the way he didn't get a chance to really do anything, I think that it's going to require we saw guys like the Clemson quarterback get into the conversation. Other players are starting to get into the conversation now. So he's still a great back. I still think he's the best football player in the country. But unfortunately, on the biggest stage, it just wasn't meant to be. Now, I want to hear your thoughts about Derrick Henry and the job he did against the LSU defense.
Well, I think in his comments after the game, he gave credit to the offensive line. The offensive line did a magnificent job. They were able to get the push on LSU's defensive line, and Derrick Henry ran wild, and there was lots of yardage to be gained, lots of yardage to be had, and Derrick Henry took advantage of it. So I would say that the offensive line, just really won that battle.
All right, and I'm back, and I can actually hear you now. Do you think
Okay.
that Derrick could actually win the Heisman Trophy now, based on what he did against LSU?
Yeah, I think so. Let me see. Alabama's schedule. I think Mississippi State. I think Mississippi State's going to give them a good game. But Bama will win that. They'll win the Charleston Southern game, and
Sure.
they play at Auburn. You never know, but I'm pretty sure Alabama will win that one as well. So unless somebody gets hurt, injury to the quarterback or something, Alabama's running the table, and if they perform even at 85, 90% of what they did on Saturday night against Mississippi State, Charleston Southern, and Auburn, Derrick Henry's going to have massive yardage ahead of him. Easily in those three games, he's going to have another 400, 500 yards, and will post good numbers. And it's just going to be an eye test to see popularity contest to see who else is still in the running. Who else is competing for the trophy there in New York?
Okay. And when I ask this next question, I do believe that Fournette's going to be making that trip to New York. I definitely believe that. I don't think that, regardless of
Yeah.
anything that happened last Saturday, I believe he's going to. His ticket is already punched to go to New York, whether he wins it or not. It's disappointing, but we know what a great back he is, and he certainly has an opportunity to do it again next year. So you mentioned one of the things about springing Fournette. I agree with you. I saw it on your text. One of the things that I think would help him a great deal would be for LSU to open it up and let Brandon Harris run the ball a little. It's a great idea. And again, beyond that, I just think it's an aberration because I think LSU is better than everybody on their schedule except Alabama. Unfortunately,
Right.
Alabama at home in that environment, and that's the other thing. That's one point we didn't make. There have been only two really big road games that Brandon Harris has ever played in. He played it. I know he played on the road at Starkville, okay, but it was a ball game where he was definitely being managed and he was not asked to win the ball game. But he was thrown in at Auburn last week, and he was last year rather, and he was overwhelmed. I believe that it was a little bit similar this time. On the road, hostile territory, not a game he'd had much experience with this year. You can say whatever you want to about however hostile Mississippi State and Stark Vegas can be, but it doesn't even compare to what he ran into Saturday night. And that had to be a factor. A number of times they got delay of game penalties because they just couldn't get the play off. And so there was obvious that the noise bothered the offense and Brandon Harris. So that's one thing that in quarterback development, he's going to have to learn how to play in big games on the road. Ole Miss will be the next opportunity there. So that's one area where
Yeah.
he's going to have to
Yeah,
improve.
yeah,
No question.
that's a great point, and I had thought about that as well. I think I mentioned it last week that he did fare well in that Mississippi State game in Starkville, but obviously that's two different. It's comparing oranges and apples, really. Starkville to Tuscaloosa in a big game environment.
Let me ask you one last question about Alabama, and then I'm going to move on because we do want to talk about the other ball game. The other big ball game was the Arkansas Ole Miss game in my mind. But I do want to ask you this: based on what you saw of Alabama this past weekend, the college football poll rankings came out last night. Um, Not only do they have one-loss team in the top four, now they have two one-loss teams in the top four. That would be Alabama and Notre Dame. Of the top four, do you see anybody in that top four that you believe that could beat Alabama right now?
I would say on any given night, anything can happen. And we've seen that all year long with these crazy finishes starting from the beginning of the season. We've seen Hail Marys work and blocked field goals and just crazy plays at the end of games. And we'll talk about the crazy one there at Ole Miss. But I would say Clemson has been in some big game environments. Dabo Swinney's building a program. They've got a mobile quarterback, and I think mobile quarterbacks will give Alabama a hard time. And so that's
My okay.
yeah. So go
My
ahead.
question is though, my question is, and I agree with you, the offenses, these wide open offenses with great athletes, no question. I do believe that they do give Alabama a bit of trouble. I will say this: I think Alabama this year is a totally different team defensively than they were last year. They are so great on the front seven, but they are so improved in the secondary from what they were last year. I think they're a completely different defense this year. My question is though, do any of those teams shut down that Alabama running game that runs it down your throat and just makes you like it? They impose their will.
Um, Not completely. I don't think anybody's going to completely stop the Alabama running game. Hey, there's my wife. Hey, there she. Oh, always popping in on us. But no, I don't think you completely slow it down. But if if the game dictates a different a scenario, if there's some turnovers, if the other team gets out ahead early in the game, you just never know. If you have to go away from your your game plan, I think there's a possibility that if Alabama's playing a catch-up type of game, um, it's possible. So that's my only point. You just never know, and on any given Saturday, anything can happen. These are 18 to 20-year-old, 22-year-old kids, and anything can happen.
And I agree
And
with
most
you that
like,
on any given Sunday or any given Saturday, anything can happen. I'm saying if it, on a neutral field, if all things were equal, I'm having a hard time seeing any of these teams being good enough to beat Alabama. Granted, I understand
yeah.
that crazy things happen.
Oh yeah.
Some nights it's your night. But if Alabama plays like they played Saturday night, if they play their best football and the other team plays their best football, I don't see anybody beating
No,
Alabama this
no
year.
chance. No chance. No, no, you're right. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I will take one statistic off of the morning at the Advocate in Baton Rouge. The average of Alabama's team is 4.2 stars, number five in the nation. I can't imagine four teams ahead of that. And LSU is an average of 3.1 stars, number 15 in the nation. So that gives you an idea of the talent level there at Alabama. So, like you said, if they play like they played on Saturday, nobody's beating them. not Ohio State, not Michigan State, not Clemson, or Notre Dame, nobody. Just feed the Christians to the lions because it's going down.
All right. I have to agree with you. All right. Briefly, because there really was only one other ball game of consequence, and it was of consequence because of what happened. Arkansas knocks off Ole Miss, which plays right into the hands of both LSU and Alabama when they went into that ball game Saturday night. They had to have Ole Miss lose so that they would be in control of their destiny. And Arkansas comes out and they win the ball game. First of all, your thoughts about the most ridiculous play I've ever seen in college football, I guess since the Cal Stanford band play.
Well, I don't know, Brian. There's been some crazy plays. I mean, all you have to do is look 1 week prior to last week with the crazy kickoff in Miami, and
But
that
that
was
play, the guy was down.
yeah, oh
That guy
yeah,
was
but
down. That play should have been
yeah,
called back.
yeah, it should have, but it didn't. So anyhow, yeah,
I
but
know.
the one at Ole Miss, the Arkansas player, the tight end that caught the ball and just made a heads up play. I mean, if he goes down, that game's over. What did he have to lose? Just throw the ball over your head. Don't even look. Just throw it back there. Hope somebody catches it and takes off with it. And that's what happened. It was just the craziest thing. I watched it live, and it was just an amazing thing to see happen. Oh my goodness! And so, yeah, um, kudos for Arkansas for hanging in there.
Okay, now it
I'm
looks like I may have lost Sess in the process with our weather situation. So we'll try to bring him on in a second and see if we can
I'm
get
back.
him back. In talking about the Arkansas game, though, the thing, Sess, you're back now. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic.
Yes.
The uh,
Yep.
the crazy play notwithstanding, and no question, that was insane. And it's just like the coaches draw it up on the board, obviously. But
Yeah. Heads
but
up.
the
That's all
thing,
I got to say is a heads up play.
yeah, and those kinds of things. But here's what really stunned me about Arkansas's win over Ole Miss. And Arkansas is not noted for being an offensive powerhouse, and yet Arkansas outscores them 53 to 52. So, explain that one to me in the first place.
I didn't hear anything you said over the last 30 seconds, Brian.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I was saying this is the Arkansas playing against the Land Shark defense. How in the world did they score 53 points against the Land Shark defense is what I want to know.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's a good question. I'd have to look at the box score. It was just like a slot machine with all the bells and whistles and cash registers and touchdown scoring. Every time one team would score, the other team would respond. It was just amazing to see the level of guts and fortitude on both of those teams because they knew that they couldn't get behind. Ole Miss did get behind, and they came back and tied it up. And it was a great game to watch. I'm glad I didn't have skin in that game, except for the fact that I wanted Ole Miss to kind of get knocked out of the running, and that happened, so that was good. But um, yeah, it was just the offenses were responding, and the play calling was great. Uh, just it's hard to capture it in words to say what actually happened. but it was just like a tennis match, is the way I'd characterize it.
All right, let me throw this out for you. You want to get a stat that will explain why Arkansas won this football game? Um, their quarterback, Arkansas's quarterback, who's fantastic. I think Brandon Allen is a terrific quarterback for somebody that's been in a game management situation. But in this ball game, Allen threw 6 touchdown passes and also threw for a career high 442 yards. When would you have ever expected a Brett Bielema quarterback to do that, first of all?
Yeah, it was just his performance, and I did notice. I just like I felt like last year he was okay, and maybe in some cases we're just like, no, maybe he's really bad. But I mean, he really came into his own and was hitting receivers just all over the field and putting the ball right on the money, and it was just a clinic that was being put on, and uh, there's his team holding him up, and he really earned it because he took some hits too. So yeah, it was a great game, and I really think that Arkansas is going to be a tough out on Saturday night for the Tigers.
Well, that was my next question. Based on the fact that Alex Collins uh, is one of the well, I'm looking at a stat that says Alex Collins joins Herschel Walker and Darren McFadden as the only players to rush for 1,000 yards in 3 consecutive seasons in the SEC. That's pretty heady company when you think about it. First of all, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, I hear you now. Um,
Okay,
yeah,
you
and
answered that.
so I think that if LSU, Les Miles, and the coaching staff uses the same game plan that they used on Saturday night, that they again will be running into Arkansas's strength, and we could be facing the same outcome. I'm glad we have the home field advantage. Hopefully, the allowed Tiger Stadium can disrupt Brandon Allen a bit, maybe more so than the Ole Miss faithful did. But and hopefully at home, Brandon Harris is feeling a little more comfortable and can hit some of those short and mid-range passes that he's missing. And the one pass that got intercepted was just a short little pass, and he missed it, got picked off.
Well, I want to keep it in perspective that, again, I have my doubts that we're going to face, that LSU is going to face anybody that's even remotely as close to as good as Alabama was on that past Saturday night. I think Arkansas is a much improved football team, but I think LSU can run. Sorry about that. I think LSU can run the kind of game plans they've run all year long and have success against pretty much anybody except a team as powerful as Alabama is. That being said, I do agree with you, though. The thing that does worry me is that last year LSU came out flat. They got hammered by Alabama in a close ball game. I say hammered. They lost in a close ball game that was a gut wrenching loss, and then had to come out and play against an Arkansas team that was improving week after week, and they went out and they were flat and they got beat 17-0. What happens this week from an emotional standpoint?
Yeah, it's real choppy, Brian. I'm getting a lot of static on this end now. But yeah, I hope that the team isn't flat. I think they do have it in perspective. It was just one game, and if the ball bounces right, LSU could be going to Atlanta. I mean, it's possible. You just never know. I mean, you've got to win out, and Alabama's got to lose one game, either to Mississippi State or to Auburn, and we go to Atlanta. How
Okay,
crazy is that?
it's insane. I don't think LSU's got much of a chance of going to Atlanta, although I do agree with you. I think LSU's schedule the last 3 games is the toughest of any of the schools that have to play the remaining games in their schedule on the SEC. I think Alabama. Um, I just don't see Nick doesn't allow his teams to get flat too often, and I think that coming off of that win last week, I don't think they're going to be flat. I think they're going to be even more emotionally ready to play against Mississippi State because with Ole Miss losing, they know they control their destiny, and they know that they can, and they've got the confidence. The thing that shakes LSU is the fact that they got beat in such a way that it had to shake their confidence and put them in a state of shock. And so it's going to be interesting to see how they bounce back against Arkansas in this ball game. One other thing I want to bring up real quickly because I know we're going way long here, but Auburn beats Texas A&M 26-10 this past weekend. Kyler Murray goes out, throws 3 interceptions. Auburn runs the ball 52 times for 311 yards. How much heat ought to be on Kevin Sumlin at this point?
I, from a personal standpoint, I think there should have been heat on Sumlin from the very beginning of this season. We've talked about it on this show before. Every year he's taken a step backwards, and this season it looks like it's even getting worse. That performance at home was pretty pathetic. I think Auburn came out and just ran away with that game. And Kyler Murray, to me, does not look like a Division I SEC quarterback. I mean, yeah, he's elusive. He's like a little jitterbug out there, quick and can make you miss, but does not look like an SEC quarterback to me. I think he belongs in the Big 12 or maybe in the AAC or something. But no, I'm not very impressed with A&M at this point. And if they're not careful, well, they'll win against Western Carolina, but they better watch out at Vanderbilt because they're playing some defense up there. So
yeah,
if they lose at Vanderbilt, all bets are off.
That's exactly right. Okay, the 2 big ball games that matter this weekend, of course, Alabama plays Mississippi State, and then LSU plays Arkansas. Make your predictions.
Alabama will beat Mississippi State. I don't think that Mississippi State has what it takes to beat Alabama. You know, they've had a couple of extra days off to prepare since they played that Thursday game a week or so ago last week. But that's just not enough to get ready for this Alabama team that is going to be at home once again. And, you know, it just has everything going right now. Watch out. LSU, Arkansas, I'm going to pick with my heart. I'm going to go with the Tigers. Hopefully learn some lessons from last week and play with some fierceness and attitude and pull it out in a close game.
I think I tend to agree with you. I think LSU is going to bounce back. I think that Fournette's going to get it back on the road and get it going again. I do believe that was an emotional loss, but I do believe that they saw some things that they definitely need to work on, and they had a chance. You know, in the first half they were in the ball game, and a big mistake in the second half hurt them, and then it allowed Alabama to get rolling. All right, what's going on with Gumbo for the Tigers Soul very quickly before we let you run?
A holiday season. Let's everybody head over to Amazon.com, pick up a copy of Gumbo for the Tiger Soul. Lots of great recipes. If you're looking for some Louisiana fare in your holiday meals, Thanksgiving, Christmas, what have you, for some parties, lots of great recipes. Pick up Gumbo for the Tiger Soul. It also has some great stories, and proceeds will be going to the LSU Alumni Association in December. I'll be cutting a check and donating proceeds to the LSU Alumni Association.
And by the way, the one thing that I do not want to see this Saturday is this. I do not want to see rain on Saturday night in Tiger Stadium, okay?
I think the weather reports are good, so you're safe, Brian.
Well, we'll see. I take nothing for granted at this point. But be sure and check out Gumbo for the Tiger Soul. Sess, I appreciate you fighting through the weather with me tonight. We appreciate the time, and we look forward to talking to you on this coming next week after week 11 of the SEC, and hopefully we'll have some happier times to talk about as we get ready to talk about LSU, Arkansas, and all the other games that are going on.
You bet, you bet. I can't believe it's coming down to the end of the season, but it's been fun, and three more good weeks ahead of us, and we'll see what the rest of November has to hold.
Fantastic. Seth, thank you very much. Tell your wife thank you for letting us borrow you, and enjoy your dinner.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Bye bye.
Seth Guerra, author of Gumbo for the Tiger Soul. I'm Brian Houston. This is the SEC report for Week 11 on Rattle and Hum Sports. Be sure to check out this and other spreecasts on Rattle and Hum Sports. You can do that at www.randhsports.com. Thanks very much for watching, and we hope that we can talk to you next time.